Brent Venables caught a lot of flack the last couple of years. And I get why, because in a place like Oklahoma, you can't win 6 games and have it be cool. Nobody's giving you daps as you go make a bowl game and lose. Nobody's okay with that. But understand now, the narrative that Brent Venables may or may not be cut out to be a head coach in college football, I think is ridiculous. And I think that narrative is just tucked into bed with a glass of water, maybe some NyQuil at the end of the 2025 season. I think when we look at Brent Venables as a head coach, we really only have one true season to evaluate him by, in my opinion. Because the first season, he gets to Norman, fired up. Everyone's excited about having their guy, I put their guy in air quotes, one of their own as the head coach in Norman. And his roster got bodied by the portal. Bodied. Now, no one's feeling sorry for him. I'm just saying, do you really want to count that as a year of adequate sample size to evaluate Brent Venables as a head coach? You're responsible for the roster, but do we want to make sure that's 100% how we're judging him? I would hold back some judgment there. Year 2, gets his feet underneath him, gets a roster, win 10 games. Okay, year 3, they enter into the toughest conference in college football, in my opinion, at least based on what NFL draft numbers say, in the SEC. OC gets hired away before the season in Jeff Lebby, and it just went how it went. You win 6 games. It wasn't a fit with quarterback, whatever. But again, year 3, are we sure that's a fair sample size to assess Brent Venables? I'm not saying that you give him a pass, but I am saying the context around Brent Venables, I think, deserves a little bit more attention. Now, if we get to year 4 and they fall flat on their face and they win 6 games, okay, hey, the data is piling up here, BV. It's tough for me to make a case for you when it comes to what we're saying about the validity of him as a head coach. But I do just think it's worth noting Oklahoma as a whole in 2025, I think truly has more of what you need to be successful. And I don't know all the inner workings of how things go behind the curtain in Norman, but my feel around what Oklahoma is right now is they are allocating, again, my feeling is they're allocating more resources towards the roster building, roster construction side of things for Brent Venables. The report out there is that John Mateer is getting $3 million over 2 years from Oklahoma. That's committing to winning football. You go get Jim Nagy, a guy who is weighing NFL GM options. That's committing to roster construction. That's committing to what new college football is. So I think that in itself, being another step towards what Oklahoma is going to be here in 2025, long gone are the days where you can just evaluate a head coach on what they do on Saturdays from an X's and O's perspective. You got to evaluate what's their support. You got to evaluate what did they do via the portal. You got to evaluate all these different things as to what make them successful on Saturdays. All right? Because I think Brent Venables got the X and O side down. If you don't believe me, go look at his national title rings that he has both at Oklahoma and at Clemson, but I digress. I think Oklahoma's going to be really good this year. I think outside of the schedule, there's very little reason in my mind for a lot of concern with Oklahoma. Now, the schedule, you got to play it, so you can't just say forget the schedule, but legitimately, defensively, why would you be worried about Oklahoma? Brent Venables running that side of the football, 60% production back. Everyone you talk to in Norman feels good about the defense. If you feel good about the defense and you know what the standard is for that defense with Brent Venables on that side of the ball, okay, I'm going to go ahead and believe that good things are going to happen. Offensively, the main pushback you get is, but John Mateer hasn't really played this caliber of competition just yet. That's fair. I would hear that, no pushback there. But my thought is, one, how good that defense is supposed to be in Norman. In the clips I keep seeing, the reports I keep hearing out of Norman with what John Mateer is doing against that defense, sounds like he's hooping, right? So if John Mateer is hooping against that defense, probably cut out for it. Other thought here, I don't think you're squinting nearly as much to see John Mateer have success in this offense for Oklahoma than maybe you were a year ago. Because a year ago, I told you, Jackson Arnold, ton of ability. Y'all knew that. We knew that. There's no question there. However, different OC than he's used to working with. Replacing the whole offensive line. A lot more had to go right for him. And then you just threw in the CVS receipt of injuries that they had at wide receiver, and it just it piled up. John Mateer accounted for 44 total touchdowns last year, bro. I don't care if you're doing that on the JV level. I don't care if you're doing that in the 44 total touchdowns. You can play some ball now. Now, what will that translate to in the SEC? I don't know, but I have a hard time believing it goes from 44 to the teens. That would, I think, shock everybody and would be something that none of us see coming. Now, there's a great book that I've told you all about several times on this show by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. Just like a great book for anyone, just regardless of where you are in life, really insightful. But the premise of the book is essentially the obstacles that you face in life, they look like obstacles. They may actually be the opportunity for success. They may actually be the reason why you have success later on. And so while that schedule right now for Oklahoma looks like an obstacle, it may actually be the proper filter to look at Brent Venables as a head coach and say, yeah, you know what? He's got some chops. Because you're going to be measuring yourself just about every single week if you're Oklahoma against some of the best rosters, best teams in college football. Like Michigan, say what you want about what they were a year ago. Sharon Moore's got a squad this year. Now, are they going to be a playoff team? Our very own Caden Smith thinks so, and I have a hard time pushing back too much on that narrative, saying how they finished a year ago. So, like, the schedule in itself, Michigan, the rest of the SEC, it's going to be a good filter. And so I think most reasonable people understand, like, the standard at Oklahoma is to be a playoff team, to compete for national championships, to eventually compete for conference championships. But most reasonable people just want to see Oklahoma look good, right? You just want to see Oklahoma connect on some punches, look competitive in every single game, win some games, and show themselves a little bit here in Brent Venables' year 4. I think they're going to do that. And when you do that, we said earlier how Oklahoma, I think, is like trending in the right direction when it comes to resources and roster building and all those things. Guess what opens up the pockets even more? Proof of concept. When you prove in Brent Venables that, hey, I am a head coach in college football. I'm going to be your head coach in college football for Oklahoma for a while here. Like, give me what I need to support what I'm doing here. 9-3, which is what I think they'll go, that opens up the pockets. That activates that makes you feel less anxious about giving to what Brent Venables is doing. And I think that's what you're going to get here. So 2026, if this whole conversation is around how we talk about Brent Venables after 2025, 2026 I think sets up real nice. Because there's no way the schedule is going to be as tough as it is going to be in 2025. Like there's no way you get that same draw, because there's no way it's worse than how it is right now. And I also think if you go win 9 games, I think John Machir comes back for another year. Dude's just a psychopath competitor from what we can gather. So you would imagine you get that close to the playoff, he's going to say, peace out, I'm gone to the league. No, I think he's going to probably make a lot of money, come back to Oklahoma, and put Oklahoma in a spot to then at that point in time have a playoff or bust mentality, compete for a national championship. And again, no more questions around Brent Venables, Your Honor, as a head coach. Just so we're all aligned there. That's what will be said after the 2025 season.